Creative Director for the Dragon Age franchise, and I want to say it is an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you. I've been here for 2 days. I slept for one of them, and you guys have been an amazing host country. I'll be coming back. That's essentially what I'm saying. Joining me today, I have Aidan Scanlan. He is the Assistant Director of Design with Bioware. He is essentially my boss. He is in charge of all of the designers and handles all of our recruiting, all of our growth for this studio. Aidan Scanlan has also been here since the Baldur's Gate days. Beside Aidan, we have Devon Gardner. Devon is our lead desktop support. This means that he is functionally the man who keeps us functioning. Every time we need a 7th monitor, every time we need a 3rd hard drive, every time we need some ridiculous ask fulfilled, Devon is always there to keep us running. He's got some fun stories about builds, which may make you cry. And Devon again has been with us since the Mass Effect days, and you know, around if you would. And last but certainly not least, Mark Wilson is a local talent. Mark joins us from Australia. He joined us shortly after he finished his last gig 3 years ago, right at the start of Dragon Age Inquisition. Originally, I'm told, from Sydney, but he's considering a transplant to Melbourne. Melbourne? If he ever comes back, he's seriously coached me for like a day. Thank you, Mark, for that. Mark Wilson is our lead technical designer. He basically built every system in the game with his team. So today we're not going to be focusing on gameplay. We've done PAX gameplay presentations. Those are a lot of fun. But at the EA Community Lounge, which is on floor 2, it's kind of tucked away, it's hard to find. Look for signs featuring Varric and chest hair quite prominently. You can come up and queue up to actually play the game. You can come play it. Yeah! Like, basically final build. So I expect some of you may be fans of Dragon Age. and you may wish to do that. As well, we're doing some smaller panels there. We did a Q&A today. That kind of thing. But for an event like this, what I wanted to do is really focus on storytelling, because it's something that we're actively trying to evolve. It's something that I see as one of Bioware's hallmarks, and something that we're trying to push almost to the next generation, conveniently, with console generation change, at the Bioware studio. And so I'm going to go through these guys, because these guys are like boots on the ground, and they're going to talk to some degree about the different roles they play in the team, how we look at story, and how it evolves. And then we're going to open it up to Q&A for you guys. So the mics are there. I can't see anything, but I'm quite sure you guys will be able to ask us some questions as well. And then again, we're around at that community lounge if you want to talk to us later. So to start us off, Aidan, I'd like to start with you because you are the most veteran member. Yes, the elite. And Aidan, if you wouldn't mind, I mean, you've been on the design team essentially the entire time you've been here. Heavily involved in storytelling from BG2, Neverwinter Nights, Knights of the Old Republic. We work closely together in Jade Empire. Can you talk to us about like how you see storytelling having evolved over the years and where it's at right now?
Well, the beginning, Bioware was, we basically made a Dungeons & Dragons game. So it was written like a Dungeons & Dragons game. That the lead designer, he was a diehard Dungeons & Dragons player. He had whole worlds of adventures that he had set up, and he approached it in that vein. So it was telling a heroic journey for the main character. And the companions that you were interacting with, had in your party, they were, back then, they were pretty much party members first from a design point of view. We were more concerned about having a ranger in the party. Now that ranger eventually turned into Minsk, who was my favorite character in that particular franchise. But the origin of Minsk wasn't about this schizophrenic, ultra-violent barbarian. It was more the fact that we needed a human ranger in that particular slot. So that, one of the biggest things that's changed is how we approach what we want to have in our storytelling. And let me jump to the side for a bit. The reason I'm talking about characters is, in my opinion, that's how we tell the stories nowadays. There is a narrative that runs the course of the game, what the hero's journey is going to be, that's still there. But I think what we do at Bioware is more around the character interactions you have with the people you meet, and telling the story that way, their reactions, their insights, their reflections on what you as a player, the choices you're making, what's happening in the world. Those characters are the reflections. And I think that's been our biggest win, is understanding that Bioware game isn't necessarily about the story itself, the narrative that the hero's going through, but the relationships and the interactions you have with your party members, with all the characters in the world. And that has been growing over an evolution from the times of Baldur's Gate, where, as I say, it was more about, I needed an elf mage in this particular instance, to Solus. Solus was not necessarily put into Inquisition because he was an elf and he was a mage. It was around the character, the story we wanted to tell about that character, and how that character would react to the world, and how that character would react to the Inquisitor. I'm not going to go into spoilers, obviously, because that's something we will not be doing here today. But the fact that the story development is now around people as opposed to game mechanics is the thing that has evolved the most. The second biggest thing, and this has been controversial at times, has been the inclusion of player voice. So through the course of our Bioware games, there was a fundamental shift between Neverwinter Nights and Knights of the Old Republic. Not with the player voice, but with character voices. The Knights of the Old Republic was the first time we had a full suite of voiced characters as opposed to having to read text, which again was a leap, because now that gave them so much more personality, and we could define that personality, design that personality in all of our future games for the characters. But the player had always had no voice. It was always text, and what the intention was that you would be internalizing the voice and making the character more you. It was more of a connection between you, the human player, and the character within the game. And that was the same for both Knights of the Republic and Jade Empire. And then we had another quantum shift to Mass Effect, where we gave Shepard the voice. So it allowed us to more define the player character, as opposed to having the freedom of that internal voice. And I think both Mark Meir and Jennifer Hale did an incredible job of being able to still give you that connection, even though they lent the voice to that character. Dragon Age Origins came out afterwards, still had a non-player voice, and then we switched it over to Dragon Age 2. So that was just, it was a quantum shift between the way we were telling stories once we started including player voice.
Another shift that's happened more recently, I would say Inquisition is the first step in this direction, is a move towards a more systemic process in our content. This doesn't mean, lather, rinse, repeat, a bunch of random encounters. Instead, trying to find a way to approach spaces that are large, spaces that require a ton of content, and to do it in a way that does not require, endless designer hours, endless writing, and so on. So, towards that end, we've worked on a lot of systemic storytelling and a lot of ways to approach the world in a way that doesn't require necessarily written storytelling. And Mark headed the team that basically focused on all of the non-combat systems design. So, Mark, your team was not just working on systems, but you were also under the, sorry about this, mandate to include some degree of narrative, right? And not necessarily as we started, but at some point before we shipped, we wanted to make sure there was a narrative tie into these systems. Would you mind walking us through some of the thoughts you went through and the processes to build those out?
Sure, yeah. So for us, Inquisition was a chance, going bigger levels, bigger spaces to explore, to bring in systems that really supported the narrative of the world. And with 2 games and how many books now, it's a pretty vast world already, and a lot of opportunities to draw from there. So one of the goals for all our systems was that none of them would feel arbitrary. And they came to life in a lot of different ways. Some of them were practically, we needed something to fill this space, so we designed a mechanic for it and worked with the writers to make sure it fit with the world. Others, level designer, for one of them, prototyped a puzzle, and we then had to work with the concept team and the writers, and we built out a mechanic around it that actually, it made sense in the world. It has history within Thetis, and it's something that it makes sense for the Inquisition to be doing it. And I'm really proud of how all the systems turned out. I think we've achieved that or progressed it.
And I think one of the things for me that was really powerful is this Inquisition was one of the first projects where we would, not always, but at points we would actually develop the gameplay first and then look at how that could be integrated into the story. There were times when we wanted to make sure that fun was winning the day. And that didn't mean that it couldn't fit. If nothing else, the writing team's very exceptional at that kind of work. The thing we found as we did that, though, is that it required constant iteration, by which we mean redos, restarts, reovers. Okay, well, wait, that one isn't quite working. And so the end result then is Dragon Age Inquisition went through not only a philosophical shift in terms of how we generated our content, because we had these massive spaces we had to go through them, but we also went through a technological shift. Most of you are probably familiar with the fact that we moved engines. Frostbite 3 is now powering it. The visuals are sharply enhanced. But that created like an enormous strain on the developers, on the studio. And so I thought it would be interesting to talk about kind of the changes we went through in terms of our needs as developers as we worked on the game. And Devon, of course, has had to deal with all of those needs. So if you wouldn't mind take us on an emotional journey.
So we've heard about characters evolving and more characters now, and we've also heard about more levels, more systems. Well, all those come with a vast price in terms of hard drive space. So when we started this, the next generation was something that might happen, will happen, and at the time we didn't have any plans, we didn't know anything about it. So when we started the process of getting this game going and all the and at that time the 3 platforms, our SAN was fine, our network and our storage was fine, but as the team needed more space and more Frostbite and everything, we've changed our SAN, we're at over a petabyte of data at least, and we've upgraded our SAN a couple times now, and it's a constant requirement of more space, more consoles, more everything, and it's perfectly fine in that we want to provide everything that the team needs to create such an amazing game. But sometimes the requests are a little bit on the crazy side. Recently, we had a problem where several of our build systems were causing a bottleneck, and that bottleneck where it was came to my team and our infrastructure guys, and I sat down with my boss and I said, so where do we think the bottleneck can be, and it might have been hardware. So we said, okay, what is the most ridiculous computer we can make? And what happens if we take this computer and put the build on it? So both of us were like, this sounds awesome. I mean, I want to be able to make this computer and look at it and say, this is a $3,800 computer. And so we did, and as a little anecdote, we now have 6 of these computers, and we had one, and then they said, so can we get 5 more of these, please? We called them the Ultra Beasts, which is an accurate representation of what they are. They have the best Intel CPU you can buy, 2 terabyte SSDs rated grade 1. They have, I think we're at 64 gigs of the fastest RAM you can buy. And these things sit there and just grind away. And what this did for the team is it took a build process that was 25 minutes, and it wasn't sequential in that each build had to take, they were in line. In the end, it took the build process from 25 minutes to 5 minutes, and that generated a huge amount of creativity and extra time that the designers, developers had better game, implement more systems, in the end, it was what we could do to help the designers make what you can see on the upstairs.
You put a new hard drive on my laptop. I didn't realize what dark machineries you had worked. I'm pretty sure if you put all those computers in the same room, it's the end of Superman 2. Obscure, but yeah. I mean, part of the challenge we faced is that we were building all of the platforms, right? So PC, Xbox 360, Xbox